Hi there, friends. How's it going? Great to see you. I'm Brendan Thomas Marrett. It's been a month since I last uploaded a Joshua Generation teaching, what with our successful revival for OHN in the Gateway Hotel in Dundalk. It was just amazing to see so many people getting saved, getting discipled, getting healed, getting restored, growing in the things of God, and taking hold of the gospel of grace for themselves, in some cases for the first time ever, and in other cases they already had, but it's always a good reminder. And as we lift up the name of the Lord, we know that he's going to draw people all across this nation to himself. But now back to the normal program, and today we're going to look at 1 Samuel 18, and we're also going to look at some other Psalms which relate to this narrative of David's experience of life after Goliath. You know, we often think of David and Goliath as one of the most seminal stories in the Bible, and in the Old Testament it is. But, oh my goodness, the drama and the horror that ensued afterwards is even more gripping. So first of all, 1 Samuel 18:2. This happened in about 1024 BC, and David's about 16 years of age. From that day, King Saul kept David with him, and did not let him return to his family. Then verse 1. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. We're talking about a heart connection here. We're talking about the connection or intertwining of souls. You know, a soul tie isn't always sexual. A soul tie isn't always something that needs to be broken. It can happen between true love between a husband and wife, or true love between friends, when God just takes the layer of your soul and spirit and puts one of you in them, and one of them in you. It's not something that we should manufacture. It's not something we should have with everybody. But there are those who are absolutely for God, first and foremost, and for you. And they want the very best for you. And they get so excited when God's moving in your life. And they rejoice when you rejoice. And when your heart breaks, their heart breaks. And when you're on the floor, if the righteous man falls 7 times, they're the ones who are telling you, come on, get up an 8th, and picking you up. Verse 3-4. And Jonathan made a covenant with David, because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic, and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. There's nothing scandalous or sexy in this stripping scene. But actually, this is Jonathan prophetically saying, David, you're a prince of the realm. You're the next in line. And even think of how Jonathan stripped naked to clothe David in royalty. And Jesus on the cross was stripped naked so that we could be clothed in heaven's royalty and become children of God. I think it's interesting that you got a Jonathan here, you have David, and David's name means beloved. Fast forward to the New Testament, and that scene when Jesus is on the Mount of Transfiguration talking to Elijah and Moses, and 3 of his disciples are there to see it. John, James, and Peter. And the Father says, the Son is my beloved. It's my beloved Son. I'm so proud of him. He's my guy. Listen to whatever he says. Obey him. Have ears to hear. Whatever he tells you, dot every I, cross every T. Follow it to the letter. So then you've got Jesus, who's the beloved of God. He's got a best friend, John, and here we got Jonathan, and his best friend is beloved, David. 1 Samuel 18:6-12. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine Goliath, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul, with singing and dancing, with joyful songs, with timbrels and lyres. As they danced, they sang, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands. Slight exaggeration, ladies. One Philistine is called one. Saul was very angry. This refrain displeased him greatly. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought. But me, with only thousands? What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a close eye on David. You know, Saul had a confidence problem back when he first met him. When Samuel berated him, it was because he cared more about the opinion of soldiers, or at least the opinion he projected on them, rather than God's opinion. And now he's still concerned with public opinion, or at least his projection of their opinion. The next day, an evil spirit, this means evil, distressing, afflicting, displeasuring, calamitous spirit from God came forcefully on Saul. This was an angel in rebellion. It's a demon. However, he is under the righteous judgment of God at this point in the story because of his sheer unrepented wickedness. He was raving false prophecies ecstatically like a madman in his house, while David was playing the lyre, prophetically worshipping. Worship is an amazing tool in deliverance, as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, I'll pin David to the wall. But David had eluded him twice. You know, in the last video on 1 Samuel, we had one prophetic narratives, and I said that David is a biblical picture of Donald Trump. Yeah, you might remember I said that? Where Donald Trump's story is very similar to the life of David's. And on the 13th of July, 2024, remember Thomas Matthew Crooks shot Donald Trump in the head, but all he did was turn his face. And what could have been a fatal shot, what literally could have been the straw that breaks the camel's back in the collapse of the West, it was avoided because he turned his head. He eluded the bullets, he eluded the spear, he eluded the missile. And then, of course, the second assassination attempt afterwards, less publicized, but equally legitimate as far as threats go. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him. David, that is, but had departed from Saul. And why wouldn't he when he's basically murderous? Now, 1 Samuel 18:5, just so we can get this in chronological order. Whatever mission Saul sent him on, David was so successful that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. And this pleased all the troops and Saul's officers as well, because when a righteous man's in power, the people are happy. 1 Samuel 18:13-30. So he sent David away from him. Get out of here. Scram, get out. And gave him command over 1,000 men. And David led the troops in their campaigns. David has the anointing of kingship. So he started by ruling sheep. And then it became 1,000 men. And ultimately, God's working him up to be able to rule a nation. In everything he did, he had great success because the Lord was with him. When Saul saw how successful he was afraid of him. He thought, oh, you aren't supposed to survive. This wasn't supposed to happen. You're supposed to die on these. But all Judah and Israel loved David because he led them in their campaigns. He was the face of their victory. Saul said to David, "Here is my older daughter Merab. I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord." Yeah, good one. Basically, I want you to fight in all these battles that I have no intention of you coming home alive from. For Saul said to himself, "I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that." So basically, it would be grossly unpopular if I kill him myself. I'll just try to get his enemies to do it. Now here's the funny thing. Saul makes it sound like this is a light bulb moment. Marriage. He kind of ignored the fact that David has already won her hand in marriage as of a chapter ago. One of the conditions for Saul getting one of the Israelites to fight against Goliath and win was that the winner would be tax-free, his family would be tax-free, and would also marry one of the king's daughters. So, why has this marriage already happened? Good question. But David said to Saul, "Who am I? What is my family or clan in Israel that I should become the king's son-in-law?" Very humble. Wow. So when the time came for Merab, possibly Merab, I'm going to call her Merab because that's what I said first. Just say it with confidence. Saul's daughter to be given to David. She was given to Adriel of Meholah in marriage instead. And his father, so Adriel's father, was Barzillai. Adriel and Merab would go on to have 5 sons. Now, Saul's daughter, Michal, a lot of people mispronounce it as Michael, and they make David's love life sound very, very 21st century. Michal. If you don't like that, pronounce it Michaela for all I care. She's dead and gone now. Now, Saul's daughter, Michal, was in love with David. And when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. "I will give her to him," he thought in that accent, "so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." So he's really hung up on this idea. I'm not going to kill him myself, but I'll put him in situations where someone else will kill him. Isn't that kind of what's happened to Donald Trump? The Democrats all want him dead, but they don't want to spend a life in prison, so they're trying to intensify the TDS, the Trump derangement syndrome, to encourage other people to kill him. Hello. So Saul said to David, "Now you have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law. Wow! Oh my goodness, how did this happen? It's a miracle, it's amazing." Then Saul ordered his attendants, "Speak to David privately and say, 'Look, the king likes you, even though he's tried to kill you twice. And his attendants all love you.'" I mean, there's a like and there's a love. I mean, this is getting better and better and better. "Now become his son-in-law. Go on, why wouldn't ya? Go on, you good thing." They repeated these words to David. But David could not pay the bride price. "Do you think it's a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I'm only a poor man and little known." So he doesn't have a lot of money, and he's humble. And while people are singing his name in the streets, he still feels like a nobody. Because he's not doing it for himself at the end of the day. He's doing it for the glory of God. In Saul's estimation, David's being sent in these battles in the hope that David would die. But in David's estimation, he's doing this because he wants to fight God's battles, to fight against the Lord's enemies, to free his people from bondage. When Saul's servants told him what David had said, Saul replied, "Say to David, the king wants no other price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies." Saul's plan, in case you haven't noticed, was still to have David fall at the hand of the Philistines. Now, this might sound incredibly disgusting and grotesque, and of course it is. But the reality is, it was normal in those days to bring back hands or heads as trophies. I mean, David brought back Goliath's head as a trophy. In later centuries, you would bring back ears or scalps. So to bring back evidence that someone was dead, yeah. And here, with the Philistines, well, they didn't get circumcised. So basically, they would still have had a very uncircumcised foreskin. So, yeah, Saul would be able to tell. Okay, he actually did go and kill the enemy. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. He said, well, I don't have money, but at least I'm not going to become the prince for free, because that would be ridiculous. This is not a fairy tale. This is real life. So before the allotted time elapsed, so he's given a deadline, David took his men with him and went out and killed 200 Philistines and brought back their foreskins. What a sentence. They counted out the full number to the king. I think it was the Bible series, if I'm not mistaken, had a scene of this. And it's literally just David rocking up with a bag full of foreskins. And he's like, let's count. I'm sure it was worse in real life. Whatever you can imagine, it was probably even more disgusting. Like, imagine Saul just sitting on his throne, just like looking at this. Gagging. They counted out the full number to the king so that Saul, and by Saul I mean David, might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal in marriage. When Saul realized the Lord was with David, it took him that long to realize, and that his daughter Michal loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him. And he remained his enemy the rest of his days. Spoiler alert! The Philistine commanders continued to go out to battle, and as often as they did, David met with more success than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. A lot of Bible historians actually think that by the time this chapter ends, it is 1015 BC, and David is 25 years old. So that he spent 9 to 10 years fighting all of these battles, and nearly getting married and not getting married and getting married after falling in love. So yeah, it's a dramatic chapter. It's a wonderful chapter. It really does begin to set up what's going to become the defining story of the rest of 1 Samuel, which is David on the run from an evil, maniacal, paranoid, devious, murderous king. And you know what? It just gets better and better. And well, not for David, but more and more exciting as we read on. So I hope you enjoyed looking at this chapter. Keep an eye out for the next one. It's going to be uploaded ridiculously quickly, probably as early as tomorrow, on chapter 19. And I'm going to start throwing in some Psalms as well, in where they fit into the story, or where they very well could fit into the story. And yeah, let's just continue to go on this adventure and find out what happens to David, Saul, and Michal. Peace out, friends.